Victor Scott, I think, super exciting for the future, maybe the present.
Maybe the present.
You know, you brought up Whitey Herzog. Think about a little Whitey ball type team. Little Victor Scott, little Mason Wynn, everybody running around, fast, hitting balls in the gap, triples, fun, excitement, stolen
Whitey
bases.
ball.
That's what I think of.
I think of defense. I think of a team that has one center fielder likely to be healthy at the start of the season. And they have Siani, who's a good defensive player, doesn't have much major league experience. So if you're going to pick between the two, and young Victor Scott has looked very good during the spring games, maybe you go in that direction. We were debating this. There's a good side to throwing a guy into the mix. There's also the side of, well, if he's not going to play as much or maybe he's a little overmatched in the beginning, does that hurt his progress as a player to get to the major leagues? So you look at it. I don't know what the answer is. I do know I like that kid, and he's going to be fun to watch whenever he comes up. But I wonder, based on injuries, do you give him a look now?
Well, I would at least at the beginning of the season, and I know some folks have been discussing this, I would say, look, I understand hindering somebody's development, especially position players, if they're not playing a lot. But if you have an injury and Victor Scott starts the year and gets a couple weeks in the big leagues, if he fails and he can't overcome that, then does a player have it in him to do it anyway? You know what I'm saying? Like Mason Wynn has failed at every level, and he comes back. Like if you have a bad 2 weeks in the big leagues and you can't overcome that, and I'm not specifically talking about Victor Scott here. I'm just saying I don't buy that particular argument that, we could break him. Well, if you're able to be broke for 2 bad weeks in the bigs and you can't overcome that, does that player really have it in him to ever be a really good baseball player?
Good point.
I mean, that's kind of the Colby Rasmus discussion. There was some of that. Like, you do have to be, and Tony really, he would say this. Tony would challenge folks so much that he's like, if you can't handle me in the regular season, how the hell are you going to handle the World Series? And I get that. So if a dude can't handle some failure, baseball is a game of failure, man. I mean, you're going to fail 75% of the time. You're going to lose at least 60-plus games per year. If you can't mentally overcome failure, then you're not going to be a good baseball player.
So my question was, if it's 2 weeks, I totally agree. If the injuries linger and goes beyond that, maybe there's something to it. Colby was a different animal, and I like Colby Rasmus.
The alien artist?
But when you have a guy that veterans who everyone respects say, I tried to take this guy under my wing, and I've had it. And I know a couple of them that said, I tried to work with this guy, give him guidance. He wanted none of it, and I'm done with it.
So
that's more than the pressure that Tony put on. This was a guy who refused to march to the beat of someone else's drum. Refused to.
But he was also, and I love Colby, but he was pretty soft mentally. And he also had his dad still in the mix.
He did walk away.
Did he have an MLB tattoo?
He did. And he made a lot of money.
He had a MLB logo while as a young player saying, I just want to be part of the team. It isn't about me. He had an MLB logo on his shoulder, and his license plate said MLB Raz.
Really?
As a young player who hadn't made the team.
Oh, my God.
But don't you think he was also humble?
I liked him.
That's the thing. Like,
I didn't know him that
if you told people this dude has an MLB tattoo and he drives with the MLB whatever it is license plate, you would think he's a huge ego guy. And he wasn't. He used to come to the events. He used to come to our events and hang out. Really? He was a great guy. He was really soft-spoken.
Really, and respectful.
Really?
Yes.
Mr. Charlie, Mr. Jim.
Mm-hmm. Wearing his Mickey Mouse shirt.
He was a really nice kid, but all I know is that when people I respect, like Lance Berkman,
love him,
said, I can't do it with this guy anymore. I can't reach him. There's more going on.
And Lance Berkman is a coach now in college at Houston Baptist, Dallas Baptist, one of the two.
It's not Rice?
Maybe it's Rice.
I thought it was Rice.
It's a school in Texas.
Didn't he go to Rice?
Possibly.
How about this lineup Wombat threw out while Newt and Edmund are out? Center field, Victor Scott. Brendan Donovan, second base. Nolan Arenado, third base. Nolan Gorman batting fourth, DH. Paul Goldschmidt batting fifth first base, Jordan Walker, right field, Wilson Contreras, catcher, Alec Burleson, left field, and Mason Wynn at shortstop.
And who's your starting pitcher?
Michaelis.
Zach Thompson.
Hide your horses.
Zach Thompson.
Whoa, Cole!
Can we have Cole?
Whoa!
I would like to hear from Cole. Can we get your take on how these pitchers will do? Your honest opinion. I'm not trying to chirp. I would like,
If you had to throw money on it,
and you can just go all 5. Just give me how many starts you think they'll make, and just throw an ERA out there.
Oh, man.
Just simple.
simple. Keep it simple.
I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Sonny Gray is the
How
one.
are you thinking?
Sonny Gray, I actually really like.
So how many starts?
I would hope 30 for all of these guys, but probably not. I mean, just injuries are going to happen, so I don't know who it's going to happen to. Well, clearly it's already happened to Sonny Gray, but injuries are going to come and go. So just like I would say high 20s for all of them. Just if not, if a couple of them might get into the 30s, a couple might stay healthy, a few might get injured, whatever. They'll do some rotations. I think Sonny Gray I think he's really good. So I would say for him, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 3-3, give or take.
Okay.
And then I think the other 4 are going to be just slightly different variations of each other, all kind of in the high 4s, low 5s neighborhood.
What about Michaelis? Michaelis can have the really good year.
He has.
He's done it before.
And it's usually every other year.
Yeah, and he did it recently, but when you have a drop-off like last year, and the same thing goes for Lance Lynn, I just think that as you get older, maintaining that consistency as an athlete is probably a lot harder. And so a drop-off of that significance, and it was like an entire, what was it, like since May 3rd or since June 3rd to the end of the season, Miles Michaelis was like almost the worst qualified pitcher in Major League Baseball. So I don't have a whole lot of optimism for him. It wouldn't be tremendously shocking if Miles Michaelis kind of separates himself from the rest of the pack. I think Gibson and Matz are for sure going to be some 4 or 5, but I just...
If he has a 4 ERA, Gibson, I'll take that as a W.
No, I mean 4th or 5th out of the 5 starters. So I would say that I am the most optimistic, truthfully, probably, of Miles Michaelis. Just because a couple of years ago, all-star pitcher, but if you had to rank him by optimism, Michaelis, then Lynn, and then flip a coin for Matz and Gibson.
I sent you a present, by the way, a text.
Thank you.
And you could save that, and you can, like, when it's time to lay your head down, you can get a big smile on your face. Lance Lynn currently has an ERA of 18 at spring training.
Thank you.
He starts today.
People are chirping Cole.
Zach Thompson, by the way, was really good in his last start. Like, I like that guy.
Yeah.
I think he's good rotation depth. I just don't think they have enough of that.
I would like to be optimistic, by the way, about Liberatore. I just think that back-to-back years of being optimistic about him and then him getting basically a full-time reliever role now, I don't see the future. Unless he's a rock star in the bullpen this year, and maybe they view him as a starting option next year because both Gibson and Lynn are going to have expiring contracts. There are going to be 2 open spots. Maybe you take the money that you were going to spend. I mean, those are $22 million right there that's coming off the books. You can maybe spend a decent amount of money for one pitcher and then promote Liberatore or something like that. But I've basically been resigned to the fact that my optimism in Liberatore over the past couple of years is kind of just not there anymore. He's a reliever.
I think a lot of people feel that way. And so he's being stretched out as starter insurance, as depth, and he hasn't been good at spring. And I'll be honest, I watch him out of the bullpen, and he's better as a reliever. I don't know. First of all, he looks ticked off, which I like. Secondly, he's got more velo because he's not trying to pace himself or try to get through 4 or 5 innings. He's kind of letting it all hang out. He was better as a reliever, and I would say that's the path. But they don't have a lot of the young pitchers who they thought would develop haven't. So their depth right now, as it stands today, is Thompson and Liberatore, who's gotten beaten up at spring.
There's a lot of guys like that, too. Look at Andrew Miller. Look at Andrew Miller's numbers as a starter. They were horrific. He was a huge pick. He was like the 10th pick, whatever it was. And as a starter, he was awful. And then he became... I mean, hell, that World Series run by the Indians, he was the freaking MVP of that team. He was an amazing reliever. Look up.
I don't like it.
Look up his stats as a starter. I bet you his career ERA as a starter was something about 6, and he was a freaking lockdown, awesome reliever.
Except for here.
Well, that was towards the end of his career. He was also beat up a little bit.
Does that count as a cheap choker bargain bin signing? Him and Cecil, because both of those guys.
Cecil, I remember that.
Cecil, just so you know, at the time was really good.
I don't know an all-star, but.
The background. I know it's easy. Cecil.
No, I'm serious.
At the time, they overpaid. John Mozeliak said, look, it was early. We had money. We overpaid because we needed that piece. And he was good. And he lost it all at once. And they actually overpaid for him. So cheap, maybe choker, but they overpaid for him.
Well, here's what I would say. Both of those guys, Miller and Cecil, had the same profile. They were really, really, really good, except for the year that they were heading into free agency.
So hold on, though. Andrew Miller as a reliever was freaking good for a long time.
His ERA the year prior to hitting free agency in Cleveland was 4.24. The year before that was 1.44.
Okay. They also ran him out there for multiple innings for the entire October of that World Series run.
But that was the year after.
So, but look, what is his career ERA as a starter versus a reliever? That's what I'm saying.
That is what I am figuring out right now. So as a starter, his ERA, you were basically hit it on the head, 5.7.
As a starter, and let me guess, so it's probably like in the 3s as a reliever? 2s?
Not even 2.95.
2.95.
And the whip difference is also 600 some odd points.
Yeah, and the years he was good. I mean, there was a 5-year stretch where he was unbelievable.
Yes.
Just all-star, unbelievable. That World Series run, Tito Francona, the usage of Andrew Miller is how they got to the World Series.
Right. And then the year after that, he was still really good. So he went 1-4. How about this, man?
So he's what? You're saying basically
Dude,
that's the age of 33 also.
This stretch in New York with the Yankees, this is when he first hit free agency. The Yankees picked him up. And it was a 4-year contract, and obviously he got traded to Cleveland in between. But his 4-year contract, once he hit free agency the first time at 29 years old, was 202, 204, 145, 144. And then I guess there was an option for the 5th year or whatever. And then that 5th year, after all those low 2s, middle of the road 1s, his final year in Cleveland was 4.24. That was 2 years removed from the World Series year.
With a 3.51 FIP.
Correct.
There's a lot of volatility for relievers.
I agree with that 100%.
I'm just saying for him, the first 5 years or so, he was a failed starter. Then for 5 years or so, he's one of the best relievers in all of baseball. And then as he aged, he just became a reliever.
Which is kind of why I would be okay if the Pirates traded David Bednar. Because he's got – I think that relievers are not built to last. I mean, not everybody's a Aroldis Chapman, man.
By the way.
I shouldn't have even brought that name up.
I did see that. I did see that. Did you already talk about that?
Oh, hell yeah.
Brought that
Think
name
I missed that?
up. What was I thinking?
You think I missed that, Charlie?
I was like, what is... Because I'm like, is that his dad at first? Because, obviously.
One of my friends thought it was a guy, too.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
It was not. It was not. Oh, what I was going to say was a couple things. First of all, don't you think a big part of the Cardinals' strategy with relievers now is a correction on what happened with Brett Cecil? They realized relievers are super volatile. The way, and again, this is the Chaim Bloom philosophy, is to have 10 relievers, cheap, and throw them all out there. Rule 5, cheap guy, coming off an injury, throw 10 bodies, and 4 or 5 of them are going to stick. The other thing is, and then you don't have to pay a dude $30 million for 4 years.
That's what to say the cheap. 4 years, $30 million. How could you stick that in the cheap bin? They overpaid.
Well, I would have to see what other options there were at the time, but
4 years, $30 million.
For a 34-year-old, though,
okay, but
that
also,
was his second free agency.
So Andrew Miller, they also learned from that. What did he get? $25 million for 3? Whatever it was. They probably learned from probably doesn't make sense to give $25, $30 million multi-year deals to relievers. So maybe they've overcorrected too much and they've depended too much on young guys. But also they're learning from these mistakes that we're bringing up.
I would view Josh Hader a little bit differently just because of the age. Now, that may have been Brett Cecil's first free agency, but you were investing. You were dipping back into the well for a second round of big money free agency for Andrew Miller. I think that was the risk. And my point with Brett Cecil, he was really good up until his contract year.
The year before, he had an ERA of 3.88, which doesn't signify running out of room in your career. It doesn't signify running off the tracks. It was like 3.88 up from 2-something. So they looked at whatever the numbers were, they saw what they liked, and they overpaid, and it blew up in their face. But to say it was cheap or they picked a guy who no one had interest in, they overpaid so they could win the bidding war quickly, get it over with, and it blew up in their face.
Another thing, you mentioned starting pitching. I haven't looked immediately here, but I remember reading an article about a month ago. So this winter, you had all these big-name starters. Next winter, it's not the same. And Zach Wheeler, remember, just gets locked up. So the ability to add a big-time starter, and now you see Dylan Cease getting traded. I could also see the Padres flipping him again, right? Maybe next winter or at the deadline if they're not good. But my point is, look, if the Cardinals this winter, let's say they don't want to re-sign Lynn, Kyle Gibson, whatever it is, and you need a couple starters, maybe you fill one internally. Where's that front-end starter? Now, if you want to play the game of, hey, maybe we can try to get a Logan Gilbert-type guy again, but this was the year where there's a lot of starters available still, by the way. Mm-hmm. So they got to be at some type of discount, at least in terms of years at this point. I don't remember seeing the starting pitching market for this upcoming winter being nearly as strong as this winter. I'll look it up right now, but I remember Wheeler was going to be coming up. He's obviously staying.
I agree with you. There were a ton of names out there, and like I said, I like Sonny Gray. I know not everybody does. I know Kevin Slayton doesn't like Sonny Gray and says that he's not number one. I mean, he had the number 2 ERA in the American League last year. I don't know if it's built to last because he's 34 years old, and I still don't understand the contract, why they would backload the contract at the current age that he's at. That just didn't make sense to me, but I still think that right here, right now, he's a really good pitcher. I don't know. We'll see where he's at 2-3 years from now.
If you're a team, why wouldn't you always defer, though? It always makes sense for a team to defer, especially if you didn't know for ticket-wise, you had the TV deal, there was uncertainty. If you're a team, it always makes sense to defer money.
But
always.
To that degree, like he's making $10 million this year and $35 in 2 years. Like he's going to eat up a lot of whatever obviously there's no salary cap in baseball, but every team has an ideal budget. And if he's making $35 million at age 36, a 36-year-old pitcher is going to be eating up that high of a percentage of your budget. I think that's significant compared to $10 million when he's, a little bit younger now at 34.
I just think the Cardinals were looking at this year. They're coming off a bad season. They had uncertainty with TV, which, by the way, is still there with what's going to happen for the next couple of years. So if I'm them and Sonny Gray agrees to it, it makes perfect sense to kick that ball. But I agree with you that they probably will use that as an excuse 2 years from now when they say, oh, we're at our payroll limit because Sonny Gray is eating up a huge portion. So I agree with you on that.
Would you have been out on Hader? You know what his ERA in 22 was?
Let me guess. It was like 6, wasn't it?
5 point. With San Diego, it was like 7. Milwaukee was like 4 something. And Milwaukee saw something. And remember when he was traded, he was immediately terrible. His ERA was 5. And you looked at Brett Cecil, who had an ERA of 3.8.
What was it last year with Hader?
Good, 1 point something. But I'm saying after 22, he was great again because he's a great pitcher. But he had a bad 22 for whatever reason. Yeah. I don't remember if there was injury. You would have been out because he was done.
Well, it's a little bit different with Hader because we were questioning whether or not you had a closer period on this team. So I think that...
No, I'm asking about performance. If a guy has a bad year, you're out because he's done. That kind of was your point. Brett Cecil's ERA ballooned from 2.9 to 3.8. There's no way anyone wants him. That's why the Cardinals got him. That's kind of your argument.
You could also make the case that it never makes sense for a closer. Like, even Edwin Diaz. I know that was totally flukish, and he's celebrating in the World Baseball Classic. But with the volatility of relievers and the fact that you have to pay them when they're about 30, like, name me $100 million reliever that it was a good contract. Yeah. I could be wrong. I'm sure Aroldis Chapman got a $75 million deal.
What's
at some
he
point.
up to?
He's fondling.
I look forward
Family.
to the year 2030 when Dylan Cease is finally old enough for the Cardinals to acquire.
Was that Kyle Reese?
Yes, it was.
No, see, he regurgitated a Twitter joke that he put on Twitter yesterday, Kyle.
Yeah.
Get some new material.
Wait, Kyle texted that in?
Well, I saw him post that on
I did.
X.
I did too. I wanted to make sure that nobody was stealing his joke.
Plenty of baseball writers are picking this crap Cardinals team to finish third or fourth in this absolute shite division now. Charlie, who's the last legit pitcher drafted and developed? Waka?
By the Cardinals?
Cardinals.
That really went through and
That's
so
what he said. That's what I'm
drafted
reading.
and developed.
That's what I'm reading.
Drafted and developed. So Waka was 13.
Did they draft Lynn?
Carlos had a couple of good
He had a
years.
couple
in there.
good years.
Carlos Martina, he just
He went to Western Illinois.
Well, crazy.
He did.
Stay out of there.
Lance Lynn was pretty dang good for the Cardinals. That's a while back.
I don't care if you draft him because if you trade for him when he's a minor league prospect and then bring him in, I still think that counts as developing.
I agree.
Okay.
Like Waino, you didn't draft him, but I'm sure that everybody here would claim him as their own.
You should count Waino as developing.
Yeah.
He was drafted he was traded in what, A-ball?
Yeah, and then J.D. Drew had the best year of his life in Atlanta, but it was only 1 year.
Okay, so they're not cheap. They're just morons. Another win for the simp, Wombat.
Okay, but whoever said baseball writers picking him third, and I don't know if you guys talked about Devin Williams. That's terrible. St.
No.
Louis area kid.
3 months.
So, I mean, do you
Seth's
really
friend.
think the Brewers are going to be competitive?
No.
No, I think they're going to be terrible.
I mean,
now.
Devin Williams is a freaking stud. There you go, about the volatility of relievers. and folks always thought his arm wasn't going to hold up because of the action on his changeup. And this was, what, a stress fracture in his back?
Oh, I don't know. All I saw was 3 months.
But either way,
Was a back.
he's amazing. He's not going to be there for 3 months. I don't see the Brewers being in it for the long haul. Even if they're competitive, the Brewers usually do the arbitrage thing and try to, stay decent all the time. The Cardinals, in my opinion, should be at least second place just based on the effort to compete, which I'm not even giving that much credit. But the rest of the division, I mean, the NL Central, they just take it. Somebody take it every year.
Yep.
Somebody just take
It's
it.
up for grabs.
Even the Cubs. Okay,
Yeah.
you get Bellinger. The Cubs are now this team that they spend very intelligently. You're Chicago.
Spend some
Chicago.
damn money.
You could be.
They don't have enough pitching.
I know. I'm saying you could be Dodgers-esque. Not exactly the Dodgers, but you are not a small market. You're in the Central with a bunch of small markets, with a bunch of Pittsburghs,
Take
Milwaukee,
advantage.
St. Louis. You are a freaking big dog market.
Yeah.
And
I don't get it.
And the Central didn't used to be where it was a bunch of also-rans. It wasn't that long ago that the Central was a dogfight every year.
Katie Wu just reported Edmond will be shut down from hitting activities for 1 week minimum. Progress looking worse. Sauce Monkey.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't count on Tommy. I wouldn't count on Newt. And I'd be very, very careful with Sonny Gray because you need that guy because he's your best starting pitcher. That's why I don't care if you don't want to start the clock on a Victor Scott. But if you're shorthanded, whatever you have to do to patchwork this thing, do it. Do it now.
Cam, Mason Wynn is batting .2 hundo. He cannot hit. North County, 314.
We'll see. Because it's his job.
You know.
We'll see.
The fact that you all struggle to come up with one pitcher they drafted and developed in the past 10 years, that's the issue.
It's
I
been
agree.
a problem. We agree. No one disputed that.
Truth be told, I don't know what was going on with the St. Louis Cardinals in that 3-year stretch where they missed the playoffs. I don't know who was here and who wasn't here.
You know, the truth is, a lot of these guys that we've heard about for a couple years
It was like a Jerko era.
haven't developed the way everyone thought they would.
No question.
Cole,
Yo.
stop butting in. Your little comments add nothing to the conversation. 636.
That I disagree with.
I do too.
You made
Why does Cole
I
keep
do.
trying to butt in? Cole, shut the hell up and let the adults talk. Ellisville Angry Dragon. What was that from?
Well, and the Angry Jack is just—he is not my biggest fan.
Were you trying to chime in and be funny or something? I don't remember.
He's fine.
I'm sure.
You're fine.
We're,
Can I-
fine.
we're talking
Hey,
baseball.
Can I correct myself?
No.
Now, there's a million dudes with options, but for next year, it is a little better than I said. Now, I think Shane Bieber's on the wrong side of it. I wouldn't pay big money for him.
Wrong side history.
But you do have Corbin Burns, Max Fried. Those are two pretty big names. Walker Buehler's always hurt. You have a bunch of option guys like Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander. So there's a couple names. If you're the Cardinals, Corbin Burns, Max Fried, those are certainly front-end guys that you could potentially get next winter. A lot of options and a lot of older dudes. Like this is so Cardinals. Let's be real. This would be the time where you finally get Max Scherzer, right?
Yeah.
It does feel Cardinals-esque to get him when he's 41 or whatever the age is, or Verlander. Now you'd have to still pay like.
Who would you rather have?
Verlander.
Well, Verlander's much better at this point. I mean, in terms of staying on the field and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both on the edge of retiring.
Yeah.
They're both way up there.
And those guys have options, by the way. Or Verlander does.
Grew up with Devin Williams. I'm happy he's succeeding in the MLB, but that dude was such a cuck growing up. Hated playing on his team because he would bitch and cry whenever things didn't go his way. Really?
Well,
Okay.
Interesting.
I'm sure things went his way a lot.
Seth hung out with him.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Oh, is that the kid he's talking about?
Yeah.
Or he stole cigars from his mom and dad when they weren't home? Mm-hmm. And he's still worried about it?
By the way, Charlie, I'll say this to you because it'll get Cole angry, but I really wanted them to get Waka because, he's my buddy and everything.
I would have liked him better than Lynn because
But innings, though. Innings.
Instead of Gibson, you got 2 innings,
Yes.
guys. I would have. We've talked about this. We agree. It's redundant. They're 2 of the same inning eater type. Instead of Gibson, who I like, seems like a nice guy. Let's see what he has. I would have gotten Waka, who doesn't guarantee you 180 innings. He's going to give you 130 really good innings, and he's done that for a couple years in a row.
What do you think, Charlie?
I like that on paper. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying this strategy is going to work for the Cardinals. And I've said 5 million times, so I'm not going to argue with myself. I said the Cardinals needed to get 2 pitchers better than Miles Mikolas. They didn't achieve that. So I think it's going to be hard to be really good and to actually make a run with this starting staff. That said, I understand why they think that innings, big picture, solves a lot of their problems, not just with the rotation, but also the bullpen. And it's early. This could be a really, really good bullpen. Not just because of the arms, but like Lance Lynn is a guy, if he's Lance Lynn, you should let him go 6 innings and allow 4 runs every once in a while and keep him in there.
I think they will.
And then maybe your bullpen gives up 1 run over the last 3 and you can win a game 6-5. As opposed to, I mean, one of the reasons the Cardinals sucked last year was look at early on. And we all know Waino was really bad. They're pulling dudes in the 3rd. I mean, 2 2/3, 3 1/3. Your bullpen all of a sudden is being asked to get 1 million outs. And then your bullpen usage the next day. That guy can't pitch. That guy can't pitch. Everybody's fried. All of a sudden down the road, everybody's tired.
They destroyed it. The starting rotation destroyed the bullpen early on. You know who has not looked good, who's a guy that I thought would be in spring training, I don't know, but JoJo's been beaten up. But they got some other pieces. Guys, I mean, some of the new guys they brought in have looked really good. They have pieces in the bullpen. That's not my concern. The concern is, do they have enough starting pitching? I think they're going to hit, too. Call me crazy on that front. I think they're going to hit.
Randy Flores has been drafting for 8 years. Flores gets a lot of backslaps for building the 5th worst team and the potential of Walker win and hence potential. The Cards were 5th worst team last year.
Hey, we got a
5th worst in baseball?
Mm-hmm. Got a high draft pick.
I think it's fair to say that, and look, they went with some high-end position players, and they've hit on some, Gorman, Walker, and all that. That 2020 COVID draft could be an amazing draft with Walker, with Wynn. Well, that was what, Burleson? That was Tank Hens as well, correct?
I think so.
Okay. But the Cardinals made their money when they were great on drafting and developing pitching. They had bullpen guys. They had starters all those years. Lynn, Waka, Segrist. I mean, who else? Carlos Martinez, Shelby Miller. There were a lot of guys. And there was coming Trevor Rosenthal. I mean, you're getting guys in the 9th round that are amazing pitchers. So they're not that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, now when they draft a pitcher, it's a guy who everyone thinks highly of, and it's taken them a while, and they haven't been great. They haven't been the guys ready to replace other guys in the rotation, so you have Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson.
I'm tired of all these guys hating on my guy Cole. That guy does a solid job and wears a lot of hats around here. Cole, your haters need to go back to watching SpongeBob. That's Bill.
I
He's
agree
in
with that.
Jeffco.
Did I text that in under an alias named Bill and Jeffco?
That's Bill, man. He's been around for a long time.
Thank you,
I
Bill.
totally agree, except with a lot of hats.
Yeah.
That's true.
I
Where's
would-
one hat?
Like
I wear no hats.
the trivia hat, he doesn't wear anymore. He doesn't make the questions up.
Producer,
He hands out a sheet in the morning when he gets here at 3
On-air
minutes.
producer.
audio
Oh,
uploader.
yeah, where is that sheet?
Phone.
Did we not get a sheet today?
Not today.
No.
Bet you.
It's all good.
Where's my
Take
sheet?
that, take that hat off.
I did make an announcement when I walked in. I said, just bet US today.
Yeah. We had the guy on,
So
too.
I functioned the sheet. I got Randy on hold right now.
Put him through.
Let's see if
Randy,
he,
what up?
did he hold all the way through? Randall,
Nope, he's gone.
I swear I just heard him.
Nope, he's gone.
I swear I heard him.
I am excited about going down to Billy's. Right there, right next to Billy's on Broadway for the home opener.
Oh yeah,
It's going to be a
baby.
dang good time. We're going to have a party down there. We're going to have a dang good show. Jimmy's going to be in there for an hour and he's got work to do. But let's have a good time, and it's going to be a long day. Mm-hmm.
A fun day.
God,
Not
yeah.
long, fun. Time
pace yourself a
flies
little
when
bit.
you're having fun.
Got to pace yourself a little bit. It's all good.
Can we nap somewhere? Can we just go to one of the hotels?
I know,
nap
man.
in
I was
the
thinking about that. Where
You
can
know
I
what?
nap?
You know what?
in the foyer.
Under the bridge?
Friend of the show, I'll mention it to him. You can nap in Mo's office.
Yeah, all right.
Yes.
I'll say, Mo, can we crash here a little bit? And he'll say, absolutely.
Back
That'd
in
be
the-
fun.
Back in the day, I knew a bunch of people that point for hundo. We could have gone up there and napped, but
What about?
I don't know him anymore.
What about the guy that always used to call on the other show? Forgot his name already.
We talked about him
Construction
yesterday.
guy.
Oh, yeah, Steve Souter.
No.
Oh.
Oh yeah, he
Biff.
doesn't. Biff.
Biff.
Oh, Steve as well.
Steve's down there, too, at Ballpark Village. I know a couple
Steve-
people. No, we know people who live down there. We'll go nap at their place.
Yeah.
We were talking about Biff because his Goldfinger would fly guys.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird. Like sometimes Doug would be on the flight, and then he got bumped one time because Strick
Yeah.
wanted to go on. I was like, it's hard to. There's so many layers to that. I couldn't figure it out sometimes.
Hire the mosaic as Busch Stadium's poop collector. Ooh.
Wow.
didn't say that.
Poop collector.
All right, Cam is not
I
napping in his office.
I did
Charlie
not
and
say
Cole
that.
can.
I did not say that. I'll go to that Millennium building. That's empty.
Let's
No-
go down there.
Let's go check it out.
Just
somebody,
cruise around.
I saw somebody having a video and went in there. Scary looking.
By the way, since we're talking about Cardinals-related events, I have RSVP'd for the Cardinals radio lunch, and I'm a media member again.
Good for
And
you.
Back-to-back months.
you know
Good for
what?
you.
Every year I RSVP to that. I never actually go. They also give you tickets.
Yeah, 2 tickets.
Yep.
2 tickets to paradise. Me so nice.
So, they also do like a Q&A with Mo, I think. So you could be like in the, all right, I'll take some questions from the assembled media. Thank you guys for coming out. We'll start with Cole. Why are you cheap chokers exploiting Brett Cecil?
Yeah. No,
He was built like a milk bag though. He was really weird body.
Played a lot
on
of
him.
video games.
That's what really ticked people off, including his teammates. That his ERA was 12 or something,
it was almost 7.
and he would play video games.
Oh, really?
So they took away the video game.
Like a child.
And there was the one spring. I feel so bad because it was the last year where they just invited him just because contractually he was still on the team. Like you knew he wasn't even going to pitch. It was over.
Yeah.
Remember he lost all the weight?
Yeah.
And he sits down with everybody at spring training. And he had I think he had 2 tragedies happen in his family in the last year or
Yes.
so. So he's already bad. He is a nice guy. He sits down. I don't even think he pitched that year. But he sat down and did everybody's interview, and he's like, I can't remember because I have a terrible memory, but 2 bad things happened with his family.
Oh, really?
And you're just feeling bad
Is he
for him.
Canadian?
No, this was
Maryland.
Maryland.
Oh,
This was a trivia.
This was a Charlie special. He pulled it out of nowhere. He said, it just feels like an East Coast.
Well, that was based on his dialect. He didn't. I thought he wasn't a Southern guy, so that middle. There's not really a dialect to people who live in Maryland.
He also showed up in the clubhouse. Remember they sent him away? Like, he went to Florida, and you know what? I saw him on a flight, and he was supposedly in Florida rehabbing, and he wasn't. He was going somewhere else. He's like, I'm not going to Florida until like the 14th. Everyone thought he was there working.
Yeah.
Nice guy. And then here's the other thing. As bad as things got, if you wanted to talk to him, he would talk to you.
Sure.
He didn't hide. He didn't. Even when his ERA was 1 million, he wouldn't hide. He was a nice man.
I respect that.
I like that.